I wanted to talk some more about zero carb keto and what exactly I eat. I eat a lot of beef. I choose grass-fed, locally raised beef. I believe that beef is one of the healthiest foods that we can eat. It's what we are designed to eat. Our ancestors in the Ice Age ate the ancestors of beef, or cattle. And so I think it's funny, sometimes people will say red meat is so unhealthy when it's exactly the opposite. Red meat is what we are evolved to eat, actually. It's just the way we've processed it and raised it makes a big difference. So the kind of beef that I get from a grass-fed, grass-finished cow, grown locally and processed humanely, is very healthy food, especially if you eat a large proportion of fat to a small proportion of meat, which is how you stay in ketosis. You want, ideally, 80% of your calories from fat and just 20% of your calories from protein. How that looks on the plate is basically pretty similar because the fat is denser in calories per gram than meat. So if you have about this much, can you see that? This much meat, you're going to have about that much fat also. And it's a good way to stay in ketosis without having to even think about it. I do measure my foods just to be safe, but you can just use that as a rule of thumb. Now, also, there's certain cuts of beef that will help alleviate the need for extra added fat. Some cuts, such as loin roasts or brisket, should have a really thick cap of fat on them. Ideally, if the processor leaves it on. Sometimes they cut it off, and then you'll have to add additional fat onto your cut. But if it already comes with that, and you can cook it with the fat on, that makes life so much easier, and it's really good. Another cut that I really enjoy, is a little expensive, is sweetbreads. And no, that's not a carb. Sweetbreads are the pancreas and the thymus of beef or lamb, and they're a delicacy in some cultures. I believe they are a delicacy. They're really good, and they are very high fat content, so you don't need any extra fat for that. And tongue is also pretty high fat on its own. I do add a little fat on the side, but it is pretty high fat on its own. Anyway, I just wanted to give you a little more insight on what I eat every day. And I usually top off my meats and fats with some smoked salt or salt flakes. I've gotten to be a pretty big connoisseur of salt because I can't eat spices because of my colitis. But salt is good to go, and it's important for trace minerals, and you need salt also for digestion because the chloride in the salt becomes part of the hydrochloric acid in your stomach that helps digest your foods. So you need salt. So you should eat red meat and you should eat salt, despite what everyone says. So that's my second video in this series. I hope that you will feel free to comment, and look forward to telling you more about Zero Carb Keto. You can find more information on my blog at ZeroCarbKeto.blogspot.com.